Hey everybody, welcome back to the LuckyDog podcast. This is your host, Elias Roush. This podcast is sponsored by EliasRoushMedia.com, photo, video, digital media production. Today we are discussing Eternals, the 2021 American superhero film based off of the Marvel Comics race of the same name. Produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. It is the 26th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, aka the MCU. It's directed by Chloe Zhao. I have not read the comic books, but I have done a little bit of research on Chloe Zhao. She has won tons of awards for her movie Nomadland in 2020. It was a very, let's just say, National Geographic / indie / film of a movie. It feels like she understands how to shoot wide-scaping vistas and leave the camera lingering on the actors a little bit longer than necessary in some cases. But I will say she's a talented director, Chloe Zhao, and I appreciate the representation that she brings behind the camera and in front of the camera with Gemma Chan. And I gotta say, the diversity in this movie is quite impressive, almost to an painstaking degree. They go to the length of having every single color, every single race you could probably think of, all under the sun. The Captain Planet special of we got a black guy, we got an Indian guy, we got a Asian lady, we got a British man, we got some people. We have people that are handicapped. We have some people that are bigger boned, some people that are smaller boned. We have people of all shapes and sizes. So basically what they're trying to do is, complete the void of having, a non-gay character in their movies, a non-straight character. So they do have a gay character at this point. But what I'm saying is they basically went through the list of everything they haven't completed, attractive Indian man, check, we got to do that. So by the definition of, being quote unquote woke, Eternals is trying to check all those boxes. Now, as someone that enjoys proper representation in film and stuff like that, having females, a person of color behind the camera is very important. It's important for the representation. Now, with saying all of that, Eternals has a lot of good things that are going for it, or at least that it swings for the fences to do, but its execution, I feel like, is where it really drops the ball. So with saying that, I'd say the pros of this movie, I kind of split down the middle of this. I wanted to know why it was 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. I know a lot of people are giving it kind of crap for, not being quote unquote as good as the other MCU movies. And I got to say, there's a couple points that we have to, point out here. First of all, MCU's movies as a whole, since this is like the 26th one in the bunch, and I've seen the majority of all of them. I haven't seen like Thor 2 or something like that. But I've seen just about all of them. This movie ranks on the lower end of those, of the majority of MCU movies, probably because we've had such good ones before it. We've seen teams come together. We've seen other superhero films. We've seen this formula before of everyone kind of coming together and having to fight the big bad or whatever. So when the Eternals is doing it, they're going to have to make it that much more interesting than the 26 movies that have done somewhat of the similar formula plot before. So with saying that, the Eternals are, for anyone that has no idea who they are, they've been apparently on the Earth the entire time that the rest of the MCU has been happening. We just haven't been able to see it. And so this movie is supposed to uh, cover all of the bases of where the hell these Eternals have been, what they've been doing, what they've been fighting against, and really what their story is. And so with having this movie, I think they said there's about 10 Eternals. So that's 10 protagonists we have to have. Plus, we have to have any antagonists that are fighting our good guys. And on top of that, fit it all under an hour and 57 minutes. So a 2.5 hour movie is quite lengthy, but we really almost needed a full 3 hours to have a full length movie to understand every single person's point of view, their understanding of the world, what they've been doing, what their goal is, what their motivations are. I feel like a lot of the motivations and understandings of the characters are brushed aside or put or kind of just like not addressed nearly as much because there are so many characters. There's way too many characters in this, I think, for it to comfortably be spread out. The trailers and the marketing make it seem like some of the Eternals are in it a lot more than they are. I've noticed this in some marketing recently that they are gunning like hell to have big name actors to show up in movies for maybe 3 to 4 minutes. And it's like, why are we I know why you do it, because you want to have people go to see your movie, but it's really getting irritating for me as a viewer saying, "Oh wow, I can't wait to see Zendaya in Dune," and then we go see Zendaya in Dune, and she's in the trailer longer than she's actually in the movie, and I feel like we're starting to hit that threshold at this point. Now, granted, they could have been in the movie longer. Uh, some of the Eternals I'm talking about are like Angelina Jolie's character, Brian Tyree Henry's character. It feels like we're trying to walk the line of having all of these characters have a necessary, interesting backstory and make it relevant to the plot. But also, it's like if we're not going to have the time to flesh the characters out, then let's just write them out. They don't need to be here, to be honest. There's too many characters. Going on with the pros again, the action is generally pretty good. It's entertaining, but it's still within the PG-13 realm. I think that the MCU likes to play in, and we even go to the point of having these the antagonists for at least the first big chunk of this movie are called deviants. It's basically these big CGI looking ass characters that are fighting the Eternals. I had a pretty rough time getting behind the deviants being the big bad for the Eternals the majority of the movie. I know that that's for a spoiler standpoint. I can't really go into full details about why the deviants don't work for me, but I just feel like they're more or less a MacGuffin, to be honest. It's kind of the Suicide Squad effect of, it doesn't matter if they're going out to fight all of these aliens. It feels like the aliens are nonsensical. It's the faceless, nameless henchmen that our protagonists get to fight, and they get to destroy them all the different ways they want to because they are non-human. And so I think we're starting to butt up against, like, all right, the MCU has had some really pretty interesting villains for the majority of them, but this is where I feel like we're starting to hit the threshold of like, all right, we need to. They're whipping characters out the ass because they just really don't have anything else to come up with. I feel is what I'm feeling like, and in comparison to watching the What If shows, I feel like the What If shows are doing a little bit better of a job of establishing motivations of characters and slight world building, even though they're going on a less amount of time. And I had my buddy Hatham I was talking to about, I was like, I think I liked the ending of What If season 1 better than I liked the Eternals. And mostly because I felt like this movie felt a little flat in areas. And it's because there is this 2.5 hour runtime, but it's not only that, it's the fact is the non-linear storytelling of kind of jumping between different times makes this feel longer than it really needs to, in my opinion, and thus makes an already confusing movie even more confusing. Um, and when I say confusing, I don't necessarily find it that confusing. I'm more or less saying the overarching plot for why it's even happening is kind of dumb. And of course, we'll go into spoilers about why that is. But my guess is the reason that people really do like it is they're kind of connecting a little bit more with some of these newer characters. Gemma Chan, Richard Madden. I like Kumail Nanjiani, Leah McHugh, Brian Tyree Henry, Lauren Ridloff, Brian Keoghan, Don Lee. We have Harish Patel, Kit Harington, Salma Hayek, Angelina Jolie. It is a stacked ass ensemble cast, and there's just too many damn fucking people to have everyone have an Avengers type moment. You know, it's not really like that. It's shown in a different way, I guess. Now, we're bringing in Chloe Zhao, I would assume she's bringing in a little bit more of a sense of direction that is kind of slightly more artistic and stylistically different than the majority of the MCU has ever seen. And I think that's another reason why it does feel like it feels like a different color palette. It doesn't feel as flat lighting as all of the other MCU movies have felt. This one is what many people would say tonally different and moody. I would say that unfortunately, because it does have this moody element to it, not that I'm against that moody element. I'm glad that there is some somberness to it. I just didn't really feel like they were. I felt like we were more somber in Endgame with regards of the world and the character than we were in here. But what we were showing and being told that this was really somber, really dramatic, and really deep. And I just didn't quite feel that at this point. Also, what I had heard is it feels like these people are dealing with pedestrian ideas when they're actually gods. And I kind of had that problem as well. It felt like sometimes they were in the mind of a 7,000-year-old god, and then sometimes it felt like they were in the mind of like a 45-year-old man. But it did kind of go back and forth from tonal whiplash, which again fed into the pacing as well. Again, the antagonist I was not crazy about. The powers were, in my opinion, it felt like the powers were inconsistent. It just kind of like they whipped out whatever they needed to. I might have needed to go back and rewatch this a couple times to kind of understand their actual power sets. I understand that Richard Madden's supposed to be like the Superman analog-ish character. And we have like the Flash character. We have like the analogs for what would be like the Justice League of the MCUs. I just didn't feel like I had that much fun and understanding of the world. And with the first hour of what's happening, the first hour needs to come out of the gate swinging. It's got to be some of the most interesting, coolest things I've ever seen. In the first 20 minutes, I felt like I was watching a DC movie. It almost felt to the level of like Venom of some sort. I was like, oh my sweet Jesus. But I haven't seen the new Venom, so I can't really compare it to that one. But let's talk a little about this in a little bit more detail. So the film was directed by Chloe Zhao and stars an ensemble cast. Screenplay by Patrick Burlow, Ryan Faripo, Kaz Faripo, I guess they're brothers, and of course the ensemble cast. In the film, the Eternals, an immortal alien race, emerge from hiding after thousands of years to protect Earth from their ancient counterparts, the Deviants. In April 2018, Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige announced that the film based on the Eternals had begun development, with Ryan and Kaz Faripo hired to write the script in May. And then Zhao was set to direct the film by late September, and had been given significant creative freedom with the film, which resulted in filming on location more than previous MCU films, which I thought generally felt like we were at the place. It just didn't feel like being there really meant that much different. Because they're gods and they're able to just pop up out of nowhere, it almost feels inconsequential where they're really at most of the time. It just feels like as long as they're protecting whoever they're protecting, they are. My problem was when they were having fighting scenes, I was like, where the fuck are the Eternals? Like, sometimes they would all go together and they would all fight together, but then there'd be other times it'd just be one or two of them, and it felt like they were being taken out like no problem. Like, I feel like we're supposed to understand the Eternals are like super, super powerful, and I never got that this entire movie. Some of the power sets are even said that they're not even that cool, or they're Gemma Chan's like character even says like, I guess I can turn things and like I can change the matter of what things are and stuff like that. I was like, all right, I guess that's a cool power, I guess. I thought we learned from X-Men that what's cool powers and what's not. But if you have to point out that it's not a cool power, then why even? And I understand that it's so that the power set like upgrades itself, but it's like we don't have time for that. I just feel like as an audience, we just are programmed to understand, you can upgrade your power level, but you just cannot start at something really shitty. And I felt like this was kind of a dumb power set. So Zhao rewrote the screenplay, which Burleigh was later reported to have contributed to. Principal photography took place from July 2019 to February 2020 at Pinewood Studios, as well as on location in London, Oxford, England, and the Canary Islands. Yeah, they just missed. It looked like they finished up right at the beginning of COVID starting and stuff like that at February 2020. That's crazy. I know that this was delayed several times, probably because of special effects and post-production and stuff like that, all of that jazz. And obviously it being released. Eternals premiered in Los Angeles on October 18th, 2021. It was released theatrically in the United States on November 5th as part of Phase 4 of the MCU. The film has grossed over $161 million worldwide and received mixed reviews from critics, with praise centering on its themes and visuals, and criticisms aimed at its exposition, pacing, runtime, and lack of character development, which are basically all of the things that I was having a problem with. Too many characters, the pacing's like wonky, and the lack of character development, again, too many characters. So all of those kind of run hand in hand. So what they really needed to do was cut about 2 or 3 of these characters off, in my opinion. Music was by Raman Djawadi. Djawadi, I think. He's the guy from Game of Thrones. He's made the score for Westworld and stuff like that. He's a great composer from Clash of the Titans. This actually had a little bit of Clash of the Titans feel to it, in my opinion. I was when I was watching this, it definitely had that feeling. But I was down with the music. Let me see what else we got on here before we go into full spoilers for this movie. A budget of $200 million. Yeah, it's an expensive one. Craig Wood was editor. Ben Davis was a cinematographer. I was curious what the cinematographer actually has done before. Same cinematographer as I've heard Layer Cake's pretty good. Hannibal Rising I have not seen. Incendiary, I've heard decent things, I think, from that. Kick-Ass, okay, so it did kind of look like Kick-Ass the more I think about it. Seven Psychopaths, Wrath of the Titans. So it did have the Clash of the Titans cinematographer, or what was it? The Wrath of the Titans, sorry. And Let me see. Long Way Down, Guardians of the Galaxy, same cinematographer. Age of Ultron, same. He's done, dude. This cinematographer has done work. Holy Santa Claus! Guardians of the Galaxy, Age of Ultron, Doctor Strange, Three Billboards, Captain Marvel, Dumbo. Damn, he's been under the Disney umbrella for a minute as well. So yeah, I was pretty impressed by the cinematography, but yeah, let's hop into the spoiler section for the Eternals. I would give this. I didn't think it was like a full-on miss. Like I wasn't like actively like hating the movie. I start to dislike movies when I give it about a 6 out of 10. But points for trying, but I just didn't think it really moved the ball forward. Like I didn't want to rewatch it. So I'd say it's about a 7 out of 10. If I had some sort of emotional reaction to any of the characters, it probably would have been an 8 out of 10, but I just didn't think that the majority of it really was pulling the heartstrings at all for me. So yeah, let's continue on. Let's continue on with the plot for Eternals. Again, we're giving it a 7 out of 10, basing it off of the majority of the visuals and look of it. It's mostly the story and character development that is just really lacking for me. So let's hop into the plot of Eternals. It's Eternals. Let me get a little bit of coffee. So y'all let me know what you're thinking about the Eternals review. I'm curious what everyone else was thinking. What is not and what is working for you with regards to this movie? I'm curious what everyone's comments are in the comment section. And again, if I'm getting any of the facts wrong or anything that we're covering in the review, please kindly update me in the comment section. And again, thank you for subscribing, following, thumbs upping, all of the whatever you can do to help the podcast. It really helps support the podcast. I can't do it without you all. And again, let me know how I can improve and if I get anything wrong. So let's get into the plot of Eternals. Okay. In 5000 BC, 10 superpowered Eternals, Ajax, Circe, Icarus, Kingo, Sprite, Fastios, Makari, Druig, Gilgamesh, and Athena, are sent by the celestial Arishim. And like I said, I'm going to get the names wrong. I'm just going to trip all over those, so bear with me. I'm just going to call him Ashrim. I know that's not his name, but I'm just going to call him Ashrim. So Ashrim sends all these Eternals to Earth in 10,000 BC to exterminate the invasive deviants. And we're told midway through the movie, I know I'm going to kind of bounce all around this movie, but we'll find out why the deviants are even there. It's so that it progresses humans. And so the deviants were taking out the humans, but then the deviants got out of control, so we got to send down something to fix the deviants, which is the Eternals. So there you go. Over the millennia, they protect humanity from the deviants, but are not allowed to interfere with human affairs. Now, this is something that I do like how the movie portrays the ideals of the Eternals. The ideals of the Eternals, some of them are like having real problem. Some of them are having a real problem sitting back and letting terrible things happen throughout humanity. And I do feel like they have to go through a level of exposition of, hey, this is why we haven't been around for the entire MCU. And I got to say that there's a call back to Superman being in the MCU. I've got a lot of questions about that. Like that completely opens up the door to a whole nother level. So they kill the last of the deviants in the 1500s, and the group's opinions differ about their continued responsibilities and their relationship with humankind. They spend the next 500 years mostly separated from each other, waiting for Ashram to send them home. In present day, Cersei and Sprite live together in London. After Cersei was left by her partner, Icarus, over 500 years earlier, she now has a relationship with a human, Dane Whitman, who works at the National History Museum, who is played by Kit Harington, which basically he's in there for like 2 scenes. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the spoiler scenes at the end. Just real quick, I assume you would have watched this movie already. 2 spoiler quick scenes. We find out that Kit Harington ends up becoming, I think Black Knight, and then Harry Styles is introduced as some sort of character. I think it was all in the articles online. So you can do a little bit of research on that. I'm not going to go too much into detail about the Harry Styles watermelon sugar of it all, but if you know what I mean, those were the stinger scenes. And so my biggest thing was like, there was almost no reason to have Kit Harington in this, but that's just neither here or there. And again, Cersei and Kit Harington have decent chemistry, but again, I feel like her head sometimes feels like she's been living as like a regular human for a little bit, but then other times it feels like she's a god, but it's the continuity, and it just doesn't feel like that, I guess. I almost felt like we needed Kit Harington to be introduced as an Eternal so that we could understand their whole what's going on with them, because we start off with like a big exposition dump, scrolling title of words going up the screen, and you have to just understand all these Eternals, the Celestials, the Deviants. It's like, oh shit, this is a lot to handle. So it would have been kind of nice to have maybe like a Kit Harington walking through, being our proximity to, oh my gosh, this is the world, holy fuck, shit like that. The trio is suddenly attacked by a deviant Creo, with Icarus arriving and chasing the creature away. Realizing the deviants have returned, they prepare to reunite with their remaining Eternals. They traveled to South Dakota, and I gotta say, this first battle, I was like, when it was happening at night, I was getting real Venom vibes and DC vibes. I was like, wow, I feel like y'all shot this at night outside by a river in like Europe, but like I don't know where the fuck we are, and I don't know what the fuck you're fighting. The deviants, I'm just like, oh my gosh. You could literally rip a deviant's head apart in a rated G movie and it wouldn't matter. It's like nobody gives a shit about these ugly looking things. The deviants were my biggest problem the first hour of the movie. I was like, my God, you're going to try to have some really interesting Eternals, but like have the worst antagonist that I've seen in a long time. So, realizing the deviants have returned, they prepare to reunite with the remaining Eternals. Team assemble! They traveled to South Dakota only to find that Ajax, their leader, had been killed by Crow before he went to London, gaining her abilities as a result. So the deviants are like absorbing the abilities of the Eternals, which instantly makes it feel like the Eternals are not nearly as powerful as they're supposed to be, and they're already supposed to be more powerful than the rest of all of the superheroes that we've been introduced in the MCU. So what is the power basis here? We got Ashram like way up here, and so apparently Ashram created the deviants, but the Eternals are supposed to defeat the deviants, which puts them above the deviants, but that the deviants can absorb the power of the Eternals, which brings them back down lower. So that should really make the deviants stronger than the Eternals if they can kill them. So they're more or less like the same power structure. But it's like, so okay, so the Eternals and the deviants are about the same, and then they're all under Ashram, I guess. But it's like, I guess the power structure just does not make sense for me. Let alone does it make sense for them to have been fighting these deviants for thousands of years and us never have heard about it. It's just like, I understand that this is a fictional world and my head's not exposed. It's not supposed to wrap around what makes sense. But still, for God's sakes, y'all couldn't have come up with something a little bit better. But I don't know. And the way that they reference the MCU in this, I was just like, what is going on? Y'all can't, I know every time that they show or probably mention a Scarlett Johansson, a Robert Downey Jr., a Chris Evans, any of them, that they probably have to pay them. They probably have to pay them to have their faces on stuff, on posters and shit like that. So I understand that they're trying to remove them from the world, but it definitely feels like we're like hand length away, 10 feet, stay 10 feet away. The Eternals are in the same world, but we're not exactly going to have them like, mashing shoulders or, rubbing up shoulders with other MCU characters yet. So they find Ajax, their leader, dead. And the whole part of the deviants absorbing the power of the Eternals feels like it kind of goes nowhere, in my opinion, which, again, it seems like a big fucking deal because I get like the zzz, 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 and they're like being absorbed at one point. It's like, holy fuck is going on? I was just like, this is intense. And when they're absorbing the power, what exactly are they able to do? They're able to do their power once they do that. I was like, okay, so that's not good at all. So continuing on, what do we have? Cersei is post. Oh yeah, and we do have Game of Thrones. Feels like it's written all over this. I'm sure Game of Thrones was just finishing after, during this segment of. I bet Game of Thrones season 7, season 8 was finishing up when this was in pre-production, and they were like, all right, we got to get everyone from Game of Thrones in. And so they had Kit Harington, Richard Madden, and then they have someone named Cersei. It's like, someone's been watching too much Game of Thrones. But anyways, Cersei posthumously chosen by Ajax as her successor, granting her ability to communicate with Ashrim, who reveals that the mission of the Eternals was not to fight the deviants, but to prepare for the emergence, the quote-unquote emergence. And just like tons of things in this movie, because we haven't been introduced to this side of the world, we get a fat, thick-ass layer straight on our lap of exposition. Holy Santa Claus. I think about 3 or 4 times there's flashes of exposition, whether it's the Eternals at the beginning having to explain what's going on with Angelina Jolie's character having like superhero dementia of some sort. She'll just randomly start fighting her fellow Eternals. That could have gone somewhere cool. I don't think it ever does. I do like Angelina Jolie's character, as I am really having a big fascination of women that are like over 40, such as Nicole Kidman. We have the Angelina Jolie effect. We have the Robin Wright effect. All of these badass women. And what was her name? Linda Carter from Wonder Woman, I believe, shows up. Yeah, all of these, middle-aged women, not exactly the youngest, not exactly the oldest, but they relatively are in 30, 40, 50s, are coming in these superhero films and are absolutely kicking the most ass. How do we get like the Big Little Lies superhero version of that? Like, I was so fucking into having Angelina Jolie come in and whoop some ass. She commands performance. She commands sexiness. She commands whooping ass. And there is not a second. Even though I know in real life, Angelina Jolie is very she's tiny, isn't she? Pretty skinny and stuff like that. There wasn't a time in this that I didn't think she could whoop some ass, and I was here for it. I like this this section of superheroism that we're having with the aged up characteristics of the characters. I was like, this is sick. I like that. So Cersei is posthumously chosen. She chooses Ajax as her successor. Ajax chooses Cersei as her successor to prepare for the emergence from Ashram. He's got to basically be birthed through the fucking planet because that's the best way to do it, I guess. I don't really remember exactly why, but so Ashram explains that for millions of years, the Celestials have been planting their seeds on populated planets for Celestials to be born, with the deviants sent by them to destroy the apex predators of each planet to ensure the development of new life. So the deviants were there to, keep the predators in check, which would be the humans. But the thing is, the Eternals are there to try to help stop that. It's like if there's going to be a Celestial born at all, just bursting through the fucking planet, then you don't even need the deviants. You don't even need the Eternals. You don't need anybody. You're gonna fucking kill everybody when you have the birth of the emergence. So I'm like, what the fuck? What is going on? All right, I guess I feel like anybody with like half that would be able to write this down or just say it out loud would make sense. You don't need to do all this. So ultimately, the antagonist is at a point where it's so fucking huge from not only a scale point, but it's just like, what is going on at this point? So, however, so the deviants were sent by the Celestials to destroy the apex predators of each planet to ensure the development of life. However, the deviants evolved and began hunting the planet's native populations. The Celestials created the Eternals to cull them. Ashram explains that with the reversal of the blip, Earth has reached the necessary population for the birth of the Celestial Talmud, which will result in the destruction of Earth. This is when I do the look at the camera. I'm like, y'all got to be kidding me. I'm like, what the fuck is even? what is even at this point? So yeah, that's a massive exposition dump in that sentence. In that paragraph. But continuing on, like I said, I got to say a couple things off the top of my head that I don't have written down. We're introduced to Kumail Nanjiani's character in President Day, and he is trying to be like a director, and he's got the same comedy style that Peter Parker, Spider-Man's having. Very wondrous, very inquisitive, very self-aware, I guess. And in a way that he does not sound like a 5,000-year-old god or whatever the hell, there's eternal or whatever. He definitely sounds like a modern day take on whoever, on a person. And so that was a little bit of, he was the one that was providing the most fun for the movie, but it also clashed with the tones as well. So it's like, it's almost like you have to write them as if they're 5,000 years old, but they've been living in modern age for such a long time that it's weird that these gods are just wanting to be normal people, I guess, that's the whole tonal clash of it, I guess. Like we have Brian Tyree Henry's character who's in an openly gay marriage, and we see that, and the majority of his powers derive of him providing pieces of technology that help humanity progress. And it's like, holy shit, that is a big mouthful. But it's like, I don't feel like the majority of things that these Eternals are doing feel like the natural course of progression. Maybe Brian Tyree Henry might have been, but I just felt like I don't understand their motivation for wanting to live a normal human life, especially if they're not like aging at the same rate and looking at the same. They address a couple things about like how they age differently and how they are different than everyone else in the world, but it's like they really don't address it head on. It's not really about that. And I kind of felt like that would have been more interesting and more fun to play with. It's just like, well, this is just what it's like being an ageless god in this time. But it didn't really feel like that at all. I know that Shazam kind of goes in that realm, but it's even to that way, I don't even think it does. It hits it in the same way. So yeah, and the little Bollywood scene with the dancing of Kumail Nanjiani at the beginning. First of all, he didn't need to get that rep for this shit. I mean, he's got the guns. He's like, I mean, I could feel how much they wanted to have the Indian box office in this. There are several times I felt like I was like, Jesus, y'all are going head over heels for him, which is good. Nothing bad, but I was just like, I almost felt like I was like, this feels like it's almost coming from an Indian director, for how much they were focusing on Kumail Nanjiani's culture and stuff like that. And again, the very last action scene does not feature Nanjiani. We do not have Kumail, one of the finger guns. We don't have him doing any of that stuff in this, in the final act. It's a complete waste of a character at the end. So, and regardless if we get him in another movie or not, I feel like it was kind of a waste to have him do so much in the movie and then not have him at the very end. So, having learned to love humanity, the Eternals reassemble and decide to prevent the emergence. I think this is the biggest problem. Is I'm not sure I believe that the majority of the Eternals ever really loved humanity. I feel like the majority of them had loves in humanity. They, Jim and Chan had Cersei like sort of loves Richard Madden, but also sort of loves Kit Harington. And to be honest, I was like, I don't know about all this. Also, there's our first Marvel sex scene. Is that our first Marvel sex scene with Jim and Chan and Richard Madden? They like are topless in bed with like what feels like fully clothed on. I was like, this is like a boring ass sex scene. It's like, this ain't nothing. Wasn't Iron Man and that one lady and the reporter lady in the first movie, didn't they have sex? I don't know. So there's a lot of firsts in this movie. It was, I think it's the first movie where they have a character that is openly handicapped. And also first character that is openly person of color and gay. But then, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, everyone's like, oh shit, the first openly gay character created the atomic bomb. It's like, that's not exactly what happened. Let's not say all that, but I mean, it's technically what happened, but I just want to go along the line of what actually happened in the movie. So, yeah, I'm not sure if I believe that Eternals reassembling really do love humanity. I think that's our biggest thing. Is I wanted like the TVA kind of low-key section of them just to sit at a computer or something like that, or have some sort of hologram pop up in front of them and show us all of the terrible things they've had to witness from humanity, and how they've decided that they want to love humanity after that. Because I feel like the majority of the movie, they're like, these humans probably shouldn't be making their own decisions. They're really doing a terrible job. But it's all about having the idea of like free will and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, let's just continue on. I digress. Let me get a little bit of coffee. They reconvene with Kingo, Thena, Gilgamesh in Australia before heading to Druig's residence in the Amazon forest, where they are attacked by Crow and the Deviants. And Druig is one of the more interesting characters. Because there's so many characters, there's no real way that we can have everyone's idealistic way of how to be an Eternal. I like how Druig's like, why is everybody fighting? If everyone would just listen to me, then everyone would just listen to me and we wouldn't fight. And that's basically the idea. He's like, I don't want to fight the Eternals, but I also don't want to fight against what's going on. So he just kind of removes himself from the situation. But in the same way that we don't have Druig for like the first hour of the movie, basically, in the same way we don't really have much of Brian Tyree Henry of the first hour. There's so much of the pacing. I feel like we should have been kind of hopping over to different characters to see what they were doing to understand where they're at and their mindset. So, they are attacked by Crow and the Deviants. Crow kills and feeds on Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is a great guy in this movie, and all he wanted to do was just cook some nice dinner and have some spit beer and crack some jokes, and he just seems like a fun guy. I kind of forgot about Gilgamesh in Train to Busan. I that's where I first saw him in. But and he had these fucking boxing slapping gloves where he'd hit the deviant. He'd like, hi, yeah, he'd slap a fucking deviant bitch right on the right on the side. Oh my gosh. So it sucked that we lost Gilgamesh. And I really enjoyed, this was one of the positive things about the movie was it was the sensual relationship between I think it's Athena. What is it? Gilgamesh and Athena, I believe. Their relationship, Angelina Jolie and Gilgamesh. He's taking care of her, but she cares about him. It's just like very sweet, and it's like a non-sexual, very sensual, meeting and gathering of the two. Like when they're together and he's like helping for her and stuff like that. It's just like, yeah, I can kind of feel the chemistry between these two. So when we lose them, it does kind of suck, but I also definitely saw that happening. So gaining a humanoid form and ability to speak before fleeing, the Crow does. Crow, and I gotta say that Crow kind of feels like inconsequential towards the end again. I was just like, I don't know about all that. So after cremating Gilgamesh, they visit Phastos, who proposes for Druig to put Talmud to sleep using his mind control powers, amplified by the Unimind. And I got to say, every time I think that they come up with like the most intergalactic, most outer space type theatrical word, like celestials or something like that, they'll come up with a word like the Unimind, and I'm like, God dang, they always outdo themselves with that. So a connection between the Unimind, use Druig to put Talmud to sleep using his mind controls amplified by the Unimind. A connection between all Eternals, which we already lost an Eternal. This isn't going to be possible, man. I don't know why you're still saying this. Icarus reveals he was informed of the emergence by Ajak centuries before he fed her to the Deviants to prevent her from stopping it 6 days prior, and flees along with a like-minded sprite, the Tinkerbell or Peter Pan of the group, which is a stupid fucking power. I feel like she's like Peter Pan meets the Invisible Woman, I guess. I don't know. Kingo also leaves the group, but as he does not wish to face Ashram, Icarus, or Sprite. So, Yeah, there's a lot going on at this point, and we're just like, holy bejesus, like, is everyone just gonna leave? And like I said, Kingo is Kumail Nanjiani's character leaving the group. He's like, fruit that, I ain't gonna do all this. Taking my documentary on the road. So there goes the comedic aspect of anyone having any fun in this movie. So after Makari locates the place of the emergence at the foot of an active volcano in the Indian Ocean, of course we got to go out in bumfuck nowhere. All these Marvel things that can't connect anywhere have to be out in bumfuck nowhere. Not that the Indian Ocean is in bumfuck nowhere, but it literally is in the middle of the ocean. The Eternals battle Icarus in Sprite before being attacked by Crow, who is Crow does come back. I forget. Crow is killed by Thena. So I was just like, wow, this is an impressive fighting action scene. Some of it was long takes, some of it was wide scaling shots. I just ultimately was like, it's taken too long for us to get to this final finale of whatever this is. So Druig knocks out Sprite after she attempts to kill Cersei. And Cersei's already been stabbed by this point. I'm like, what can Eternals do if they are so much more powerful than all these other superheroes, but if they're stabbed just the same? It's like, well, good God. So Eternals, Sprite attempts to kill Cersei, and the remaining, it is knocked out. And the remaining Eternals work together to subdue Icarus. Phastos activates the Unimind, and Cersei uses her matter transmutation abilities to turn Talmud to marble. And I gotta say, from the look of the fucking hand coming through the earth, one of the most spectacular looks I've ever, things I've ever seen on big screen. But like, saying that, I'm like, dude, y'all are going so fucking big. How does the MCU just not show up? How does nobody show up? How does that, none of that happen? I understand that if it happens quickly that they can't get there super fast, but like, Captain Marvel can't show up. Like, what is going on? So it's just like, all right, do you want me to believe the MCU character, the heroes are there or not? So anyways, you got this big fucking dude try to bust through the fucking world, and he's getting turned into damn marble. I got to say, Ashram have like these six glowing eyes on his face. Very interesting looking design. But yeah, what else do we got on here? A guilt-ridden Icarus flies into the sun, and Cersei then uses the remaining of the energy from the Unimind to turn Sprite into human, stripping her of her immortality, which I think everyone could have saw that happening. You can't just have a character say, I can't age, but unless you want me in the next movie. So you got to remove that shit. You got to remove all the possibility of her aging. So yes, the Peter Pan girl is no longer the Peter Pan girl. So Thena, Druig, and Makari depart on their spaceship, the Domo, to find other Eternals, while Cersei, Phastos, Kingo, and Sprite remain on Earth. Dane professes his love for Cersei and is about to reveal a secret about his family history when she, along with Phastos and Kingo, are remotely dragged into space by Astrum in full view of the people of Earth, who is displeased with their treason, but elects to spare their humanity if the Eternals' memories show that humans are worthy of living. He vows to return for judgment before disappearing into singularity, taking them with him. In the mid-credit scenes, Thena, Makari, and Druig are visited by the eternal Eros, the brother of Thanos, and his assistant Pip the Troll. who offer their help. In a post-credit scene, Whitman opens an old chest inherited from his ancestors that contains the legendary ebony blade when an unseen person questions him whether he is ready for it. And that, my friends, is the end of Eternals 2021. Let me know what you thought about Eternals 2021. Let me know what you thought about the podcast. Thumbs up, subscribe, follow. You know what to do to help support the podcast. Go to LuckyDogPodcast.com. Go to patreon.com/LuckyDogPodcast to get this podcast early. If I got anything wrong from the facts wise or from the comic book wise or from being able to pronounce anybody's name wise, then please leave a nice friendly comment in the comment section. Again, you can find us on SoundCloud, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. And of course, LuckyDogPodcast.com. Thank you for being a supporter, helping us out. You know what to do. Look at our podcast. Take it easy.